welcome everybody to the new Cool Down show. This episode is going to be called Let's Rid Ourselves of Bullies and Victims, and I'd like you to meet my wonderful guests and friends. This is Phylis Sugar to my left, and Rabbi, the one handsome man in the at the table, and also Ruth Berger. I'd like to just take a moment to give you a little bio, but they have so much to say about them, so I'm going to read it. Phylis Sugar taught elementary school for 34 years. In 1988, she received her master's degree in counseling psychology and became a licensed clinical professional counselor. In 2004, Phylis began her experiential training in EMDR. Since her powerful experience, she's decided to integrate. I'm okay. I'm going to get my teeth back in my mouth and everything's going to be fine. Into her counseling practice. Now I'll have her tell you about it. That would be much better. And Rabbi John Linder grew up in Buffalo, New York, and received his BA degree in Amherst College, graduating cum laude in American Studies. John spent his first career as a community organizer for Massachusetts Fair Share and a labor organizer for the Hospital and Healthcare Employees Union. John went on to work as a leader in the recycling industry before entering seminary at Hebrew Union College, Jewish Institute of Religion in Jerusalem and Cincinnati. Rabbi John received a master's in Hebrew letters in 2002 and was ordained in 2003. It was the powerful Jewish mandate to pursue social justice and the most inspired John to become a rabbi. John serves as a rabbi at Congregation B'nai Joshua, Beth Elohim in Glenview. And the only reason I can say that is because I'm a member. It's a hard name.
That's enough of it.
Okay. And he works on advisory, a Board of Family Service Center. He's also at the Mayor's Office on Domestic Violence in Glenview Clergy Council and the United Power for Action and Justice in Glenbrook North. And I have instructions for Ruth. Read slow. Ruth Berger is an ordinary woman who does extraordinary things, that's for sure. Ruth is a practicing psychic medium consultant, past life regressionist, intuitive trainer, and stand-up psychic who travels throughout the United States and Canada, entertaining and teaching psychic techniques to increase psychic skills. Boy, having said all that, I can shut up now. Well, welcome, and thank you all for being here today.
It's nice to be here.
And I mentioned the title about let's get rid of bullies and victims. And I know there is a Goldie Hawn who has a website called wordscanheal.com, and I think a wealth of wonderful information's out there. And so I feel that partially what I would like to know is your experiences, your thoughts about what can we do to bring a little knowledge, because I think if people know better, they can do better. And since bullying seems to come from a root source, I think you can track it to probably almost anything where violence of some sort at some level starts, and it's usually the way a parent maybe has talked, children have talked to other children maybe, and so on. So I'd like to throw this out, and anybody who wants to have something to say can just say it. And if would you like to start, Rabbi? And
thank you.
You're welcome.
Sure. Well, first of all, I think in terms of our society, we grow up with that expression that sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me. And our experience in life teaches us something far different than that, that actually words are perhaps more powerful, a tool for hurting or healing than sticks and stones ever could be. That's when we use words in a positive way, what it does to raise people's sense of self-esteem, and how hurtful it is when people use words for bullying and specifically to tear someone down. So I think just first as we start this, I think culturally we need to shift the paradigm how powerful words are and how we can have people think about the words they use for good and to be aware when they're misused, the damage that's done.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. And I know that you work on counseling and you've so many families who've gone through hard situations.
And also when I was teaching, you see a lot of the bullying. And schools really can make a big difference, because sometimes, I know that we had talked before and you said, well, it starts with the family unit. But sometimes, unfortunately, the family unit is so broken that there needs to be something else until that family unit gets help, until they want help. And so the schools can really do a lot. And there was a website, and it was teachsafeschools.org. And they have how the school can improve the safety. They have a checklist where they interview the children, the parents, and they even find out where in the school could a problem begin, a hallway or this or that, and really take charge. And we had peer mediation in one of the schools I taught at. And the principal has to really be on board for this. And I went to the principal and I said, could we try this peer mediation? And you train the children how to listen to each other. And sometimes the kids wanted to just come, and sometimes they just came because they were threatened with suspension. Mm-hmm. But sometimes it helped and sometimes it didn't. But it was an effort. And I did look online. There were just a couple of things. And for any parents that are out there, there's just a couple things I thought I'd throw out, if that's okay.
Well, please do.
Okay. It's sort of like a little quiz. And for parents that are having children that are having problems, one of the questions was, victims should ignore bullying behaviors and learn to fight back. And parents would come to me and say, I told them to fight back. And I said, that you've got to teach them another way. And what this particular site is saying is that if a child is a victim, they need help from another source. They can't just go fight back, because it's really not going to work most of the time. That doesn't help. So they need the teachers and they need the parents to get involved and say, look, this fighting has got to stop. And that doesn't always happen, so that's really important. Also, telling on a bully will only make the situation worse. And some people really feel that way. But if the child does not get help and the parents and the teachers don't do something about it, then they just keep getting beat up. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to do all of them. There was something else that I thought was interesting. Bullying usually occurs in the absence of peers, and that's not true. They bully, everybody sees it because they want to show that I'm cool, I'm in control. So that was the other one that was, bullies are insecure and have low self-esteem. Lots of times, like you were saying, they come from a family where that's the power. That's what they see. So they feel this is the way to be powerful. So we need the parents and we need the teachers and the principals to really have a plan, a real plan. And I think that schools should be the focal point of the community. They should be open till 10 o'clock at night. There should be security. There should be games, homework. It really, when I was a kid, we went to Max Strauss Center, and it was a community like that. And you got help. You could do whatever you wanted. It was a lot of fun. But they could make the school like that, where school could be a lot of fun. But it takes money.
Yeah, that's the cry around the world. It takes money.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. That gives you a lot to think about, I think. And I know you've had an awful lot of experience, if nothing else, with raising family and all the counseling that you've done, and I'm sure you have a lot of insights.
I'm coming from a little different level. Okay. All of my life, I've been able to see colors around people, auras. And those colors tell me a lot. They tell me if this person is dangerous or is okay. And that's one thing. But when a bully comes along or somebody who wants to take advantage of someone, that energy gets bigger because now they feel powerful. The difference is that if the would-be victim begins to love them, not verbally, but mentally, spiritually, you're part of God, so I'll just send you love. Automatically, what happens is all of that venom that has been centered around the victim is completely demolished because there's no return of the fear or the anger. And what happens is this person who had it in mind to destroy somebody suddenly doesn't have it in his mind anymore. He's taken aback by that. And I'm giving this talk at a big conference in Las Vegas, maybe 10 years ago. And a woman stood up in the audience and she said, "Did you know that in the city of Las Vegas, they teach the hookers, who are prey to a lot of people, how to do what I just said so the perpetrator won't attack them?"
Interesting.
Yeah, so I believe that there's a silent way with a spiritual bent to it that can get you away from the bully, but also the bully can then begin to feel comfortable with you and not need to be angry and not need to hurt.
I'd like to ask you a question on that, Ruth. Does the bully just find one target, or does the bully usually find many targets? Because, sometimes you hear about these people that they say they were extremely quiet people. Pardon me, and then suddenly, suddenly they run amok, and they start with the killings in the schools, road rage, abuse of their spouse, even almost anything. And you hear that you never suspect that this was potentially the type of person who would erupt in such a manner. But to me, it seems to me that is a big clue to probably most of what's going on in the world, because they feel so uptight about themselves, very unhappy, not communicating with people in a loving way, or maybe even in any way. And then quite often either they kill other people and then kill themselves. And the MO that you hear on the news is always the same: extraordinarily quiet. And so that, to me, it sounds like you're talking about a person who picks on a person for some reason. But I think probably most bullies might find a series of people to pick on.
I think what we have to do, there's this, like what you're trying to do, get enough people together where we grow in terms of peace thinking. That's the idea of it. So for years, whenever there's a bully heading some kind of a government or heading some kind of a group of people, whatever they are, if there are a lot of prayers for the peace of that person, that person doesn't do as much negative work. So that's, but I was thinking more of individuals. I was thinking like a lot of husbands who are very abusive. They want to hurt the woman, especially if she's tried to leave the man.
Right.
And when she uses this technique of sending him love, even though she never wants to have anything more to do with him, but she sends him love from a spiritual level, there is less a conflict with him when he deals with her. So I think it's a lot of things. I think we have to work with individuals as well as large groups.
Well, you know, I work with women who've been abused, and you know, I've been doing the EMDR before even I did the EMDR. I worked with.
Would you please explain what EMDR is?
Oh, okay.
I forgot to do that.
It's a counseling technique that is used really throughout the world. It's recognized in Israel and Britain, and our Department of Veteran Affairs has said that it's, you know, a good method. It's a little hard to explain where it won't sound weird, but I'm going to attempt to, okay? Francine Shapiro has founded this in 1987, and she was walking down the street and something was bothering her, and she realized her eyes were going back and forth, and she realized that she was starting to feel better. And EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization reprocessing, and that is a mouthful. But she said, you know, later on that it's not only the eye movements, it's the bilateral stimulation, and it's the way your brain really can heal itself through bilateral movements. I have a machine I use, tapping. They hold tappers, and there's earphones, and that, you know, you hear different sounds. And the person, you know, I need to give an interview to find out really what the situation is. And then we work on a trauma. And the person then tells me, when they think of the trauma, what is their irrational belief about themselves? Like, I'm no good. I'm a bad person. And what do you want to think about yourself? You know, I am a good person. I am a deserving person. And then you start the taps, or you start the eye movements, and you stop, and then they give you one line of where they were. It's like being on a train and just watching the scenery go by. It's not where you have to go through the entire trauma minute by minute. And sometimes it takes more than one session. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 to get through that trauma. The reason that I decided to go into it was because I was going to quit counseling when I retired. But I took this EMDR training, and I really just thought I was going to take notes. I didn't know they were going to make me do it, you know. And I had problems with one thing that bothered me, and so, but I really didn't think it was that big a deal. And when they started doing it, you know, they said pick something like on a scale of 0 to 10, pick a 2. So I picked a 2, but it went right to the 9. And I thought it was something that I had solved. I had been through therapy before for it, and in a couple of sessions, because the training was a couple of days, it was gone. The negative feeling I had, the guilt that I had, was gone. And it never came back. And I thought, I got to do this. I have to help people. So that's my EMDR story.
That's amazing.
Good story.
Yeah. Tremendous.
Yeah.
Well, there's a problem as well that in Western religions, from the Bible, that you're to love your neighbor as you love yourself. The problem is when people have a low sense of self-esteem and don't love themselves, that doesn't work as well. And the Rabbi Hillel, in taking that verse, love your neighbor as you love yourself, was really more realistic and practical about it when he said, what is hateful to another, don't do. What's hateful to another, don't. What would be hateful to you, do not do to another. So we need for people to think about, and it's a matter of listening to people in a different way that I think each of you have experience with people coming to you because they have some question they're trying to get to. Often that initial question is really not what they're really looking for, and it's a question of whether we can listen to them enough to really find what's behind it. What is it that has caused their own self-esteem to be diminished? May have been something that happened in school, something that happened in the house, but the power of what one person can do in listening to someone else can save a life. So that person in school that's a bully, is there somebody that's listening to him or her differently? And for them also to understand the consequences of what they're doing. There is an expression in Jewish tradition that a wise person anticipates the consequences of the words that they say and their actions. And people too often don't think at all about what those don't think beyond the word that just leaves their lips or their action. Listening, getting people to anticipate and to be accountable.
Well, this has been quite an amazing time to hear all your experiences and thoughts, and I feel we've only scraped the tip of the iceberg. I want to know if between the three of you here would have an idea and maybe even want to get involved together in putting something together, because I feel that we need to somehow touch the people, because if it were not for Shalva, I happened to be at a synagogue and they were talking, Shalva is a Jewish organization that I believe helps abused people, or maybe mostly women. Speaking, I did not realize that I was an abuser. Yes, I was an abuser, and I was like, wow, me? I fit the category. I didn't know that when you talk to your children and you holler, and I was such a hollerer. My mother was a hollerer, and I was a hollerer. And I tell my children, what do you mean hollering? This is not hollering. You want to hear hollering, and I go up a few more notches. That's hollering. Well, when I came to that realization, that was really hard to face. But I ended up really thinking about it, and one day for Passover, I wrote a special prayer, or just acknowledging that I now understood what they were trying to tell me as kids. And you're a big person and you're yelling at these kids, well, yeah, that's abuse. And I mean, I hugged my kids, I loved my kids, I baked cookies, we did all those things. But in between, when I was frustrated or angry, I did not know that I was being abusive. So yes, this means an awful lot to me, because I'm trying to tell you out there, audience, in TV land, it could be any one of us, and probably is, not realizing we have the capacity to heal or to destroy. And I vote in favor of heal. I hope you all get your paper and pencil out there so that you can get the different websites that we're going to be listing, and contact us in case you want to help us in PR or have any ideas in putting something together to help make this world an even better, more loving place to live in. And I'm going to put my 3 guests on the spot. We only have a couple more minutes, so I got to do this fast. Like what was that when we got Governor Blagojevich and he said yes or no? I'm going to ask the 3 of you. Would you like to help me with your ideas? And somehow we need to reach the prisons, the schools, the households, the world. And I know that you've got the brain power right here. If you've got the passion, will you help to push this forward?
Yes.
All right, I learned something from that passion you are involved with. So I feel really, really good about what we've started here today. And can we agree to meet again in the near future when I call you? We're going to look up your calendars and see if we can get together.
Absolutely.
You know where to find me.
Oh yeah, I can find all of you. You're not safe from me. And I want to tell you that it's been a joy to be here with you. And they're giving me, is that 2 minutes, Walt?
You have the 2-minute warning.
All right. We've been warned. So anything you'd like to tell us before that time is up? The floor is yours. I zip up.
I had an idea, actually.
All right.
A public service announcement. I'm not quite sure how and what we would angle it toward, but the more people see it on TV, it gets to be much more of an awareness. Everybody then can start thinking about it. And if it's, a public service announcement, at first sometimes people make fun of it or whatever, but it might be a way to reach a lot of people.
It's interesting.
That's a good idea.
Thank you.
Do we know how we can do that? Get that done?
I think you can find out. I don't think it's too hard to do.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah. I also think that there are powerful examples in the community that are important for people to look at, people that have the greatest reason to have animosity and hatred towards one another, but have chosen to break that cycle of hatred and violence. There's an organization in Israel called Bereaved Parents, parents who have lost their children through terrorism and who have actually connected with the parents who have lost their kids through suicide bombers. And these Israeli and Palestinian parents have risen above the hatred that's been there to break a cycle. And if that's not a powerful model that's pertinent to what we're talking about, I'm not sure.
And Hands of Peace as well.
Yeah.
That I'm hoping to be working with I'll know in January.
And I think if people cannot do anything else, at least pray for peace in the world. Do that. I mean, you can do that from your home, any place. And I think that's probably the nicest gift you can give the universe.
Yes.
To pray, and as Rabbi Heschel said, that we should pray with our feet as well, that our prayers should inform what we do and our actions. And